Well, it's certainly been a while since we heard that intro music, the generic StreamYard music. But nonetheless, after 3 months, the KickCast is finally back on the airwaves for season 2022-2023. I am your host for today, Neil Simons, and we've got an array of our Kick 360 personalities and football journalists here today. We'll first start off with David Shilovsky. David, how are you doing?
Neil, doing very well. Can't believe it's only 24 hours until the kickoff of the A-League season. Yeah, looking forward to another big season of A-League.
24 hours and 11 minutes, according to my calculations. The first ball of the season will be kicked. I'm not sure if that's how I should say it, but anyway, Sha Nen, welcome back for this season. How are you feeling?
Thanks for having me, Neil. I am a little bit tired, so I'm just letting you boys know my football opinions are going to be a little bit more entertaining and unhinged tonight. So look forward to that.
The unhinged, the better, I say. And Jack George certainly likes to express his opinions on tactical nuances within the leagues. Jack, how are you doing?
Thanks, Neil. Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for being the only person who actually asked me how I'm doing out of the four people we have on this panel. But that's okay. I think we should explain things first of all. The season is coming now, and obviously you probably be surprised why we have 17 million podcasts now on the Kick 360 podcasting network. I think we can call it that. This is because we've just got a lot more podcasts. We've got the Golden Generation podcast, which has been really fun to listen to. That's, of course, hosted by Harper Pestinger. We've also got the Pitch to Park podcast, hosted by myself and an A-League championship winner, George Mells, and more podcasts to come. If you want to just saturate your ears with Key 360 podcasts, and that's completely your prerogative. But yeah, there you go. Just wanted to sort of go into how you guys feel about the off season and everything that went into that off the field. Now we saw obviously the Nani signing, I guess, is really reinvigorated some things, and also the A-League Access documentaries. Just wanted to hear you guys' thoughts on the ratings from the off season. I guess maybe give it A, C, B grade on how you felt the league was managed in the off season. We'll start off with Shah.
Yeah, it really goes to show what a long off season it is, because I'm trying to think back to when the off season started and talk about it, and it just feels like so long ago. I don't know if that's just me, but overall, I think there's been a lot of positives in the off season. We kind of started off not so much in the off season, but like towards the end of the last season, started off season with the A-League All-Stars, which put a few of the names on people's radars, like Garen Kowal. And then we had the Nenny signing, which kind of built up a little bit. But then we had the kind of push this whole thing where we were going to get some marquees, some big names, and there was a lot of people linked, which had the A-League in the news. But unfortunately, we only really signed Nenny and Charlie Austin. So overall, I think it's been okay publicity-wise, but it's a little bit disappointing when you see how it started off with such big hype, and now all of a sudden, it feels a bit flat to me.
Jack, your whole thoughts on the off season? A quick summation.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think the fantasy is really good, and how they're I guess they're publicizing that and marketing it is really good. Like even like bringing back the A-League in and outs, and then they've got the little fantasy tip below each one is, I think, quite cool. And I think that's something good. I think even just getting Billy Wingrove down from the F2 as well is like a good way.
You should have seen how long him and Craig Goodwin at the season launch last week were doing keepy uppies and doing these random volleys to each other. Oh my god. It's like, it's not magic, the F2. They put in real hard work to get the correct shot. Anyway, Jack, go on.
Yeah, but even that, it appeals to like maybe, a bit of a different demographic. People who can come in and be like, oh, wow, look, there's Billy Wingrove from the F2. He's going to this Mariners game, going to this Wanderers game. I think those are the two he's going to this weekend. Maybe I'll stop by that and see if, he's there or something like that. And yeah, I mean, look, it's been so long. It's hard to remember exactly what's happened. Like, it feels like already like ages ago since Nanny actually signed for Melbourne Victory. So it's hard to kind of grade it or like look at like just analyze it as a whole without like actually sitting down and going, okay, and this date this happened, blah blah blah, throughout like the lengthy period. But I think it's like I'm personally, I'm quite optimistic, but I'm still really excited ahead of this season.
And David, just I guess relaying those thoughts that Jack said. Have you got anything else to add on the matter?
Not really. I think Sha and Jack both did a good job there, summing up. It was obviously a long off season. I think, there's just quickly for me, there's a bit of disappointment that we didn't, as a league, manage to get sort of one or two other big names, in addition to Nanny and Charlie Austin. But we might go into this a bit more with Sydney FC, but they brought in a few. I mean, obviously Jack Rodwell was already in the league, but Joe Lolly, Robert Mack, these are players with pedigree, so they might not fit the marquee definition to a T, but I think overall, good off season, and plenty to look forward to.
Plenty to look forward to, and plenty to look forward to in round one of the A-League men's season as well. Kicking off tomorrow night as Western United, the reigning A-League men champions, take on Melbourne City. I will be there at Amy Park with Tom Williams to cover all the action. But yeah, this looms as a very intriguing matchup. Looking at the squads, the ins and outs. Thank God that we have this back now. I think it's a really good tool for everyone who's obviously playing fantasy. I must say, guys, I just maybe just going on a bit of a tangent here, but I thought the ins and outs was very redundant in previous seasons due to the lack of, I guess, real need for it, unless you're like a massive fan that pays attention to the intricacies of everything to do with the ins and outs. But I guess, what are your guys' perspective on these things, and how do you think that this can sort of build a cult following similar to the AFL, I guess?
The fantasy league, you mean?
No, the actual ins and outs itself, like the article and the clubs actually relaying the squad list for each week.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, I might be off base here, but is it just, a summary of who's in and who's out? I mean,
yeah,
can you elaborate on what
pretty simple,
AFL?
man. But the thing is, we didn't really have access to this information last year, and I don't think anyone really did, except maybe Western Sydney. But yeah, I think consensus is it is a good. Yeah,
I think just how it relates to fantasy is probably the biggest thing that it brings, because it's been a while since we've had a proper fantasy competition, I think, and obviously you want to know if you're captaining Charlie Austin, is he playing this week, similar to the Premier League fantasy and stuff. So I think from that perspective, it's good.
One annoyance I have with it is that some teams didn't say which players were unavailable. So like below the list, they just like not add them, if that makes sense. Whereas
they don't necessarily have to. I think clubs like to.
I know, but I'd rather it be all symmetrical.
Yeah. Well, fair enough. I think as we can see, these two teams have been pretty upfront as to who's playing, who's not. For West United, JB Young, Leo Lacroix, Dylan Perea, Tomoki Imai, Tongo Dumbia, Lachlan Wales, Dylan Winslow-Halls, Stephen Lucic, Connor Payne, James Tracy, Ben Garuccia, Josh Risden, Sebastian Pasquale. That's an interesting in. We haven't seen him. I think we didn't think we saw him all at last season. He's, of course, a former wonder kid of Australian football, Nicholas Milanovic, Jacob Tratt, Ryan Scott, Noah Bortic, Nikolai Topol-Stanley, Neil Kilkenny, and Alexander Prijovic. No Alessandro Diamanti. For Melbourne City, Tom Glover, Scott Galloway, Scott Jamison, Nuno Reich, Thomas Lam, Matthew Leckie, Richard van der Ven, Jamie McLaren, Florin Berengay, Aidan O'Neill, Valon Barisha, Andrew Naboot, Tarash Gonwalker, Jordan Hall, Curtis Good, Marco Tillia, Callum Talbot, Matthew Sutton, Max Caputo, and Jordan Boss. Now, this is listed to be my preview. So I'll just sort of take the reins here. This is very awkward. I think Western United, their composition this season, they haven't really added too much. James Tracy and Jacob Tratt and Tongo Dumbia, I'm pretty sure, are the only real major signings for them. It's a bit of a hard one on the whole, on the balance. Obviously, we didn't see much of Western United in the preseason. Of course, defeating victory, I guess, against the run of play. Largely, those 2 goals came. But of course, that own goal in the first half did sort of give them that buffer. But then again, they were quite poor against Sydney United, and they obviously bowed out of the cup. Melbourne City have been more poor, but with the absence of the likes of Van der Ven and Thomas Lahm, and of course Valon Berisha, who is a massive coup for the football club. So I do think that if City come out firing as they usually do with their, I guess, tried and tested front three of Naboo, Lecky, McLaren, I think this could be getting pretty ugly. However, this being a grand final rematch, I'm sure the grand final losses family in the minds of the likes of course, Patrick Isnorbo, and this should be. I think it's a very good, season setter for the upcoming campaign. To be honest, just any of you guys have any thoughts? Maybe Shah, you got a couple thoughts on this game?
Yeah, like I think I agree with you about Melbourne City. I think they've looked a little bit poor in pre-season. I know it's the A-League. I know pre-season doesn't really mean too much, but there was a stat last season that I think it was the top six. They didn't really have too many favourable results against the top six. And with how good of a side Western United is, I know you shouldn't really bet against Melbourne City because they're such a good squad, but I can't really see them, really as favourites in this game. I think Western United are by far favourites in this game. I'm probably going to look like an absolute idiot in, 24 hours' time, but I think Western United is just such a good squad, and Melbourne City have looked so poor against good opposition and in pre-season. It's going to be a very big uphill battle for them.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. But just as we'll do for each game this round, well, I guess not necessarily a score prediction, but either win, loss, or draw. And we'll start off with David.
I think you guys both made good points. I think Neil, you did Western a bit dirty though. I'll go.
I
City.
just think that it's a case of Western United. They have had their composition very established for the past season, and teams will begin to figure them out from a defensive standpoint. I don't think they can really just sit back and consolidate. But I think it's a bit of a hard one for them, to be honest. But yeah, look, I don't know. Maybe I'm being harsh, but I don't see that football being sustainable for more than a season, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's fair, Neil. I think all 10 of United's fans will be tagging you on Twitter tonight. But yeah, I'll go with a City win for tomorrow night.
Jack, what is your prediction?
Same. City win, I reckon.
And Shah?
Yeah, it looks like I'm the odd one out. I'm going for a Western United win. They got the best player, in my opinion, in the league. As a defender, they got the best forward in the league. I don't know if he'll play Privic. They're just too good all over the park, so I can't see Melbourne City getting past them.
Yeah, no worries, mate. That sounds completely reasonable to me. So
Neil, what's your prediction? What's your prediction, Neil?
My prediction doesn't matter. Moving on to Brisbane Roar versus MacArthur FC. I think City will win. Moving on to Brisbane Roar versus MacArthur FC. This game, of course, being Brisbane's return to Suncorp Stadium, which is a very interesting move. Do I rate it? It remains to be seen. Brisbane have quite a turbulent off-season, of course, bringing in Charlie Austin and bringing back Riku Danzaki. And they've also had a lot of off-the-field matters as well, none of which we'll get into today, but they've been very well established. Going into the squad for this game, for Brisbane Roar, Macklin Frick, Scott Neville, Jordan Courtney Perkins, Thomas Aldred, Connor Chapman, Raman Akbari, Riku Danzaki, Charlie Austin, Mili Usnich, Henry Hoare, Jesse Daly, Josh Brindle South, Carlo Armiento. Good to see him back after his ACL tear. Jack Hingert, Jordan Holmes, Jay O'Shea, Kai True, Joe Knowles, Cyrus Demi, and Louisa Bala. And for MacArthur, Philip Curter, Jake McGinn, Tommy Uscock, Jonathan Aspropotomides, I think I've done that correctly, Ivan Vujitsa, Kieran Backus, Danny De Silva, Ulysses Davila, Daniel Lazani, Lockie Rose, Alassane Torre, Nick Schumann, Matt Miller, Charles Momomwa, Jake Holman, Anthony Carter, Jed Drew, Craig Noonan, Jerry Scottardis. David, your thoughts on this tie? MacArthur are Australia Cup champions, but can they do it against the Roar on a I don't know what the weather's going to be on Saturday, but can they do it in Brisbane? Yeah,
on a warm summer evening or
on a warm, empty Lang Park. I think we should say that. Yeah.
I think MacArthur will win this game. Look, I think to take too much out of the FA Cup is hard for MacArthur because they only played, I think it was Wellington, out of A-League competition. So obviously they won the Australia Cup. It's a good achievement to get like a major trophy for a club that's only been in existence for a couple of years. But yeah, hard to put too much stock into. I think the Davila story is obviously really inspiring. Mohamed Toure, I thought he played so well. He spoke so well after the game. I know we don't want to touch on Sydney United too much, but the way he handled the crowd was great as well. And I think with Brisbane, it's just look for any Brisbane fans listening. I don't want to be too harsh, but there's just not a lot to look forward to this season. I think the squad, obviously, I mean, Charlie Austin's a great signing, but take that out. Yeah, you've got Danzaki back, but there's just not enough in that squad. Outside of Jay O'Shea, Danzaki, and Charlie Austin, there's just almost nothing there, really. So with respect, I think this will be a comfortable win for MacArthur with their momentum coming from the Australia Cup win. And Brisbane just don't have much to offer, unfortunately.
Yeah, very interesting. I guess, David, what is your prediction for this tie?
I'll go comfortable MacArthur win. 2-0.
That doesn't really matter. Sha?
Yeah, David.
It does
really
matter.
hit
I'm
the
just
nail
saying,
on
like,
the
we're
head.
not going through the actual scores and stuff. Anyway,
comfortable
Sha?
win for Dwight York's boys.
David hit the nail on the head there. I think MacArthur, their whole time in the competition, have looked a decent squad, but I think this preseason they look like they could be a real deal. I know it's very early signs. I know the A-League's very unpredictable. It's not played on paper, but their attack just looks unreal. Their midfield looks unreal. The only real question mark I have about them is their defense, because they've lost Mari Appiah,
Absolutely.
phenomenal player. He was very underrated. So that's going to hurt them. Whether or not they can really fill that void is something we're going to find out, 27 rounds time. Brisbane Roar have looked very poor in pre-season. I know we can't really talk about him too much, but they've lost a lot of good quality leadership and good crossing with Corey Brown. Less said about that, the better. Charlie Austin's been a good signing. Danzaki's been a good signing. But they just don't look like they've got enough. They don't look like... Warren Moon doesn't look like he can get the best out of this squad. And yeah, I can't see anyone but MacArthur winning this one.
And Jack?
I think it might be a draw.
First draw for the two games. Interesting. I think that a pretty comprehensive MacArthur victory. Just let Daniel Arzani cook, to be honest. Let him cook, see what he can do. I think Dwight York being a inexperienced coach allows maybe to let the likes of Davila and Alassane Toure and Arzani cook a bit more and have a bit more individual freedom to roam around and utilize their trickery. And I think that's what we want to see. If they want to play entertaining football, I think that's what ultimately is going to bring in the crowds at Campbelltown. So it remains to be seen if that's the case, but I do think MacArthur will win. Yes, the next big game, the Big Blue Sydney FC versus Melbourne Victory. It's going to be like 80 millimeters of rain tomorrow in Sydney, from what I understand. David, I think you're covering that game as well in the stadium. I'm not sure, but
hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully, if the trains and cars and if the water is not just like at ground level of the stadium.
I think I'll get my snorkel out, but I should get there.
Yeah, everything should be okay in that domain. But yes, we'll go through the squads. Sydney FC full strength, it seems. Andrew Redmayne, James Donachie, Alex Wilkinson, Connor O'Toole, Jack Rodwell, Paolo Retre, Anna Lafondra, Joe Lolly, Robert Mack, Patrick Wood. He's actually got the number 12 this season. I think he's had a number change. Patrick Yazbek, Anthony Caceres, Diego Caballo, Adrian Sekicic, Tom Hewitt-Bell, Alex Parsons, Max Burgess, Ryan Grant, Luke Braddon, Aaron Gerd. Jack, big game. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting, obviously.
Sorry, no, before that, Victory Squad. My apologies. Matt, sorry, I completely forgot the other teams actually playing. Matt Acton, Cadete, Ray Marksan, Matt Sporanovic, Lee Broxham, Chris Economides, Josh Bralante, Ben Folami, Jay Barnett, George DeMatteo, Stefan Negro, Luis Nani, bit of a name there, Nick D'Agostino, Paul Izzo, Roderick Miranda, Jake Brimmer, Nathan Konstantopoulos. He's the only player that has full caps for his last name. Nice. Nishan Valuple, Noah Smith, Leighton Brooks, Will Wilson, Eli Adams. Sorry, Jack.
That's all
now
good.
You can go.
Thank you. Yeah, it should. I'm hoping it's a good game. Obviously, that's a weird thing to say. But it should be based off what they expect. good crowd, and I mean both teams they're playing apparently new systems based off preseason. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk around Sydney switching, well, Corica particularly switching from his favoured and tested 4-2-2-2 to a 4-3-3.
The question is,
and
Jack, will
yes,
how much swearing will Steve Corica be doing at halftime?
I haven't watched the documentary. I still need to get my Paramount Plus subscription for the upcoming season.
Oh, you've been found out, mate.
Well, yeah. They halfway through last season, they said, "Oh, someone's hacked my account," because they had, and then they said, "Okay, good luck," and that was pretty much it. And so I had to make a new account, and then they didn't give me my money back, and so I'm a bit angry at them. I'm in a bit of a feud, and they really care as well. So, yeah, should be interesting. Yeah. What was I saying? Yeah, Sydney, they've changed system, and I mean, Luke Brand is at the very least included in the squad and has seemingly been playing in friendlies, and that could be a massive addition if he's fit and ready for the Big Blue. 90 minutes, hopefully, his ACL remains intact. And then Melbourne Victory apparently have changed their system as well from a 4-2-3-1 to a 4-3-3, according to people who've been watching the games like Tom Williams, who wrote a good article.
I wouldn't take too much of that against NPL2 opposition, to be honest with you. But
yeah, but why would they? I don't think they'd play like the system they're not going to play in a friendly, if that makes sense, because it's good to learn it in every. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I reckon, but who knows? Maybe it will be a 4-2-3-1 or something different even. So yeah. I mean, it should be like a good game, hopefully. And this, like, I guess this Sydney's, they're trying to up their intensity in their style of play compared to what was quite slow possession last season. They're trying to play more like forceful, where like they can progress the ball, and then if they don't, they can counter press quickly to win it back. And Melbourne Victory, that was kind of their game last season, where they'd slow down, but then when they'd have the ball, they'd sometimes go, okay, we're going to go forwards. And when they'd say they're going to go forwards, they really try to go forwards. And then when they lose it, they instantly press to win it back and continue on like that for a few minutes or whatever. So I think that could make a really interesting game. There could be parts of it that are really dull, with one team just holding onto the ball at the back and the other team just relaxing in like a rest defense, and then like they'll go, all right, we're going to go forwards, boom, and then like it could be some really exciting 5-10 minutes. I won't be surprised if there are lots of goals, they all come in like a short space of time, like maybe 2 or 3 come in 10 minutes, and that could decide the game. And yeah, I guess that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty reasonable. Anybody else got any other thoughts before we go into the predictions?
I just think, sorry, Sha, I had his hand up. You go, Sha.
I think this is a game with a lot of questions that are going to be answered, hopefully, such as how is Melbourne Victory going to get the best out of Lewis Nenny, because
I forgot about him.
Marco Rojas is a very different player to Nenny. I know a lot of people might remember Nenny from his time Manchester United, where he'd dazzle on the wing, do a lot of tricks, try cut in, shoot a couple of goals, but he's become a very different player in the past couple of seasons, and he's very different to Marco Rojas. He's very different defensively to Marco Rojas, almost non-existent at times defensively. So the whole team's going to have to kind of work differently to utilize Nenny better in attack and defense. And for Sydney, a lot of questions such as like Jack Rodwell, how is he going to go at centre back? Is this going to be something? I know he said he's in the past he could be England's centre back. Is this going to be something that's going to work out as a masterstroke this season? Is he going to get found out? How long are they going to stick with it? How are they going to utilise players like Lolly, Robert Mack, Lafondra? Even how are they going to utilise Luke Braden back in the team? Because to me, he's like almost a new signing. Is he going to play straight away? Is he going to play drips and drabs throughout the season to get fit again? There's a lot of questions, and I'm looking forward to seeing them answered. And I just want to give a quick shout out to Noah Smith, fantastic footballer, fantastic bloke. He's got very, very big boots to fill with Jason Davidson, but I believe he can exceed Jason Davidson's levels given the game time. He's a fantastic footballer.
And very overly priced on A-League Fantasy, I must say. I think he's like 328k, which is ridiculous, to be honest. No offense,
They must
Noah.
rate him higher than I do.
Yeah, I think it's all statistical based. I just don't. He had very minimal minutes at Central Coast last year. Anyway, David, you had some final thoughts.
Yeah, Shah pretty much stole my thunder there. I think it's all about how Nanny and Sydney's new guys. I mean, if you count Luke Braden, that's almost like 4 or 5 new signings, So are they all going to gel in the first game in a Big Blue? Probably not. So interesting to see what happens.
And predictions. We'll start off with Jack.
I reckon a draw.
0-0, I reckon, for me.
Nah,
Sha?
I reckon there'll be goals, but a draw.
Sha?
I'm gonna just give. Apparently, going to be a big crowd, so I'm going to give them what they want. 3-3 with a funny goalkeeping error. Maybe Paul Izzo accidentally throwing it into his net or something.
I remember there was a 3-3 Big Blue at the SFS probably 9 years ago. Neil might remember, but I don't think that'll happen tomorrow.
I remember the 3-2 when Andrew de Boot went sicko mode. That was
we don't talk about that one.
I'm impartial to it.
I'll go with the victory win.
Yeah,
Tomorrow.
all right. Moving on
Saturday,
to F3, the return of Garansky. He returns to the wonderful stadium that is Central Coast Stadium, as the Central Coast Mariners face off against the Newcastle Jets. I think it's at 5 p.m. No, when is that? When is this being played?
5:35. Yeah.
I think it's a 5:30 slot. Yeah, it is. On Saturday, and this is obviously a very different Central Coast Mariners squad to what we saw last season. And we'll go through the squad right now. Thomas Aquilina, Brian Kaltak, Josh Nisbet, Max Ballard, Sam Silvera, Jason Cummings, Benny Incololo, Harrison Steele, Garen Quall, Storm Brook, Kalechi John. They just have his first name here for some odd reason. Jacob Farrell, Daniel Vukovic, Michael Roos, Cameron Windass, Yaron Souza, Nick Dalios Triantes, Dor Jock, shout out to NPL Victoria, Paul Ayongo, and Marco Tulio, not to be confused with Marco Tilio. Unavailable is Mateus Boresh, Dan Hall, who is suspended, and Bradley Tapp, who is injured. And the Newcastle Jets, Jack Duncan, Dane Ingham, Jason Hoffman, Jordan Elzey, Matthew Yerman, Brandon O'Neill, Trent Bahaja, Becca Dartsmella, Becca Mikotadze, 8 and 9, respectively. I think I saw someone on TNC say the double Becca bus. That's very funny. Redo Piscopo, Joshua Sotirio, Muhammad Altai, Costa Glozos, Daniel Steins, Callum Timmins, Michael Weir, Rory Jordan, James McGarry, Carl Jenkinson, Archie Goodwin, Noah James, Angus Thurgate, and Mark Natter. Sha, the F3 has a bit of spice to very revamped squads, if you want to call them revamped. Of course, the Mariners losing the likes of Mark Birigidi. They've also lost Marco Urenia, and they've brought in some talent to supplement those players that have left. And I guess for Jets, obviously losing Daniel Pena, they brought in Reno Piscopo to replace him. So how do you see this one panning out?
Yeah, when you read out all those names, props to you, by the way. Like I would give
I'm
up
a commentator.
after
I
about a
have
minute
to be
trying to
okay
read
with
those.
pronunciations.
But yeah, when you read out all those names, it just goes to show you what a different side the Jets are already, and they've recruited really well. But whether or not they can get the best out of some of these players who were like good young players but really didn't find their best at Glory, I'm talking about Steins and Timmins. I don't know, but I really hope so, because Daniel Steins is one. He was at Glory, he left, he went to NPL, he dominated, come back to Glory, and he showed glimpses.
I'm gonna be brutally honest with you. He did not dominate at the Bentley Greens.
I'm talking NPL Perth. NPL
it's pretty easy.
WA,
It's pretty easy to dominate there if you as a former A-League player, to be honest. no
he
disrespect, by the way.
Showed glimpses of what he could sort of do over his couple of seasons at Perth Glory, but then he showed glimpses of just nothing, whether or not it was lack of confidence or whatnot. Same with Callum Timmins. He was a player who you've seen him, his strikes, he scored some wonder goals, but you've seen some of the defensive work he did, some of the, combining the defense and attack, and you think, geez, this kid's got it. But then the next week, he'll look a shell of himself. So I'm very keen to see these two players in particular playing at a side that, no disrespect to Glory last season, isn't a basket case, and I'm keen to see if they can get the best out of them. But I don't know where I was going with this. Oh yeah, S3 Derby. Yeah, it doesn't really matter the form the players or either team has with the F3 Derby. There's always going to be feeling in it. There's always going to be fans there, and I'm just disappointed that Daniel Pena and Matt Simon aren't there anymore, because I think that's the kind of we got a glimpse of it. Matt Simon wasn't even playing Pena. It caused a bit of fire. We got a glimpse of that last season, so I'm hoping someone from either side can step up and bring a bit of fire. Denny Vukovic got the captain's armband. I think he's a fantastic choice, and he wants to make the World Cup. So let's see if he still has the qualities he had when he left Sydney FC.
Absolutely. Anyone else got any other points on this? I guess Garang Kuol. I guess there is a discussion point here. Of course, he did sign for Newcastle United last week. He's actually playing the Newcastle United Jets this week, which is hilarious. The parallels exist there. But also, he's been selected for the Young Socceroos, it seems, that all reports suggest that will be the case. If you're Central Coast, what do you do to get the most out of Garang Kuol? And I guess, is he sort of, would you guys say he's, I guess, a makeshift marquee now for the Mariners? Is that maybe a bit too controversial to say that? Because
I think
he brings a lot of name value to this football club now.
I think makeshift marquee is a bit generous. Don't want to rain on the Qual parade. But I think Mariners, have this, few month window before he moves overseas that he's almost like a marquee, to be honest, though, because when have Mariners had a big name player? Rarely. And this is a kid his ceiling is so high. There's a lot of expectation on him. He's going to sell tickets because he's an exciting player. I mean, look at his highlights from last year, from his, what was it, 200, 300 minutes he played altogether? There wasn't many minutes, but he makes things happen, sort of like Arzani did on the weekend. Whenever he gets the ball, something's going to happen. So Mariners do need to market the hell out of him, I think, to get bums on seats up at Gosford.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else got any points on Garang? Obviously, he's playing with the Young Socceroos, and that's going to be obviously taking a lot out of his game time for the first couple of rounds before he heads off to. So I think he's going to be unavailable from. I guess this is probably his last week, and then you get to head to Kuwait to play those qualifiers against, of course, Kuwait, India, and Iraq.
I mean, I guess that is there is the key where he hasn't actually started a game for the Mariners in the A-League, I think, the A-League men. So it is interesting how he has now become this massive player, and he'll if he had stayed the whole season, or if he will on loan, he will save their season, but he actually hasn't started. It's just interesting how much a player's reputation can change over the offseason. I'm not saying he's not good, because obviously he'll, if they can, they'll start him and he will be influential and a fantastic player for them. But it's just I think it's just an interesting viewpoint as to how his reputation has changed into now where we can kind of say, oh, is he a form of a marquee, or the Mariners' best or biggest player for them? I would say Cummings is based off the fact that he will be there for the season, definitely, and also the goals that he provides, the assists, and that just genuine what's the word, personality that he offers. But I think
you should have saw what at the launch last week.
Yeah, but
if that Tom Williams interview ever sees the light of day, you boys are going to be very entertained, I must say.
Nice. Well, yeah, that's my point then.
Any more points, guys, or are we good to move on?
I just think quickly, just on the Jets, if I can. I think Papas is one of the best young managers we have, Australian managers at least, and I think Jets have made some good signings. Brandon O'Neill, Piscopo. I'm forgetting a couple of guys, I think, but I think, as we mentioned in the chat today, there's that sort of 4th to 10th on the ladder, could go anywhere, and don't necessarily rule Newcastle out. I mean, I don't have them in my 6, but this squad could do something this season, I think, if the stars align.
Absolutely. Predictions. We'll start off with the Shah.
Let's go Jets 3-2 with a last-second Jenkinson goal.
All right.
Carl Jenkinson, forgot him.
Jack.
I'm begging for some entertaining scores.
I think it'll be a Mariners win.
And David.
I'll go Jets. Jets to win.
I think the Mariners will scrape this one with the Garang Kuol 90th minute winner, as he usually does at this level, to be honest.
How many minutes does squad got?
Off the bench, maybe.
He only needs 1 minute to score.
30? I don't think he starts, to be honest. I doubt it. I mean, he just came back off a flight from Newcastle, so I doubt it, but we'll see what happens. This is the team that has had the most, the two teams that have had the most off-season turnover. The Wanderers taking on Perth Glory. this is going to be a very interesting one, of course, at 3 p.m. on Sunday. The Wanderers, of course, I think 19 signings they've made. I don't think any of the squad has been there since last season, except for the likes of maybe Daniel Margush, Traore, Marcella, and Nazarene from the looks of it, and maybe Carluccio and Wilmering, but most of it's extremely new. So Margush, Claire, Adama Traore, Marcella, Marcelo Guedes, Mary Nazarene, Oliver Bazanek, Kusini Engi, Milos Ninkovic, Suleiman Kirpic, Ruan Tonjek, Raman Amalfitano, Daniel Wilmering, Lawrence Thomas, Jared Carluccio, Yeni, Nicobacto. I've definitely butchered that. Brandon Borello, Calvin Newmanhoff, Zach Sapsford, and Alessandro Lapane. And for Perth Glory, of course, a very changed squad as well. And John Coutrumbus will face off against his old side, Liam Reddy, John Coutrumbus, Mark Beavers, Aaron McAneff, Ryan Williams. Mustafa Amini has also been named as captain of the Glory today. Bruno Fornaroli, Salim Kalefi, Ben Azubel, Luke Ivanovic, Jack Clisby, Keegan Jelicic, Zach Duncan, Joe Donacoli, Mitch Oxborough, Matt Hatch, Dale Lachman, Piers Clark, Forza MPL Victoria, Jacob Muir, Stefan Kolakovsky unavailable, Brad Jones, Cameron Cook, Anthony Burke-Gilroy, and Adrian Sardanero. Sha, this is a very interesting contest. You got the Wanderers that promise to deliver once again, as they do every single season, and then they don't even I don't know how to explain it. They don't even. They just don't deliver. The last time they made finals was 5 years ago at this point. So this is going to be a very interesting season for them, but also equally for Perth Glory, who have got the nicest home kit in the league. But can they replicate that glorious home kit on the pitch?
I think a lot of people I've seen are putting Glory 12th on the ladder, and I think, look, they're not going to win the league, but I think people are seriously underrating Perth Glory. A lot of the players are recruited. They've recruited smartly. A lot of the youngsters who kind of got thrown under the bus last season, to be honest, they'll be better for that experience. Ryan Williams is a top signing. Fantastic player. Ben Azubel, who I thought, oh, look, this isn't a really good signing on paper. He come from the Israeli second division, didn't have the
Trust
best
me,
stats.
Sha.
He's looked really good preseason, and I'm shocked.
No.
I think he's going to be
I'm
decent
always
player.
going to support the Israelis. That's just who I am. And I went to Maccabi Haifa games in July, when it's in Champions League games, against Olympiacos and teams like that. And I spoke to some fans. I'm like, what do you think about this new Israeli guy that an Australian club have signed? His name is Ben Azubel. Didn't receive the most raving of reviews, but I'm keen to see how he will perform. And I want him to do well. Hopefully him and Jacob Muir can strike up a good connection. Anyway.
One player, I know I used this before when I was talking about Daniel Steins, but one player I'm very, very excited to see get a proper chance in the A-League is Keegan Jelicic. He absolutely destroyed NPL Queensland. Everyone who played with him, played against him, said this kid is amazing. And whether or not Perth Glory will give him a decent shot is another question. But if he gets a decent shot, he looks like he could be a player that could, he's not a marquee, but he looks like he could almost turn around Perth Glory's fortunes on his own. He looks that good. So some of these Glory players who have signed up, Mark Beavers, he's absolutely massive. Mustafa Amini, he's looking like he's fit. He's their captain. I think a lot of people are really underrating the Perth Glory. As for Wanderers, as you said, I feel bad for Wanderers fans because it always looks promising. They always sign these players that look really good on paper. Last season, they looked really good on paper. You've seen Dimi Petrados, borderline Socceroo, all these good players they signed who look like, man, this is going to be a good squad. They shit the bed last season real bad. They looked horrible. And this season, again, man, all these good players they signed, Borello, they signed a bunch of good players. They signed Lawrence Thomas, but I don't think Wanderers fans can be comfortable being Wanderers fans and knowing what the club's like when they sign all these promising players. It looks good. There's a good feeling around the club, and it happens every season. So I just hope they can bring back the fans. the RBB had their 10th anniversary. It was like amazing. They had this meetup and everything. If the Wanderers bring back the RBB and bring back the fans, that's a successful season in my opinion.
Awesome. Jack, what are your thoughts on the Wanderers this season? Of course, they've gone through a lot of turnover, but I think something that hasn't really been sort of talked about a lot is the amount of young players that they've signed to scholarship contracts, and also bringing the likes of Calvin Ewenhoff and Zach Sapsford. I guess, what do you think do you think Calvin Ewenhoff can have maybe a career resurgence at Western Sydney after a couple of really poor seasons at Sydney FC from an injury perspective, not on the park, of course?
Yeah, I hope so. It's going to be really hard for him to get minutes. I wonder what the agreement was there, because if I'm not mistaken, he got signed quite early on in the window before they did announce their defensive midfielders or central midfielders. Is that right? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wonder whether the agreement was always that he was going to have to be a squad player and fight for his spot rather than like he was going to be a starter, because I think it is quite risky to have him as a starter midfielder, at least like in Mark Rodon's eyes, because of his injury record, particularly with his back. That's something that can occur more often, and it's not good for a young player to have that, which sucks for him because he is a really, really good player. Like, he came into that Sydney squad and like he did exactly what he will have to do at the Wanderers. He fought for his place and he essentially got it. He was starting with Luke Bratton as like this central midfield pair before he got injured, and then from there it was just like it never worked out for him. So I hope he can, obviously it's based off performances. I hope if he is playing well, then Rodon gives him the chance, if that makes sense. If he's playing better than the other central midfielders, right, he goes, okay, we'll bring him in, because he is quite unique as an Australian football. He's very cultured. He's got good vision, not just in like his like passing, but also just like in how he perceives the game, and like how he never really seems to get caught under pressure, which is a really promising characteristic for a young player in central midfield. He never seems to try and overcomplicate a pass or a dribble, which is good, but he still manages to be quite efficient when he moves the ball forwards. So he's a really exciting player, and I hope he gets the game time he deserves based off his training and performances.
I think that's pretty reasonable. We'll go around the prediction table. Jack, what do you think? How do you think this will pan out?
I think Wanderers will win.
Sure.
I think Glory will surprise people and come away with a win and look really good.
Sure. And David?
Wanderers win for me.
Yeah, I think Wanderers will win
Perth
as well.
Perth don't have much to offer either, unfortunately.
Yeah, Wanderers will win with the best halftime entertainment in the entire league. They've got some really good rappers, by the way. So get down to Combank Stadium. Sorry, all these name changes, man, frustrating me. The last game of the round.
You were hyping up Michael Turner for a second there. Bit disappointed.
No, Turner does not deserve any acclaim. I'm sorry. He just flies under the radar, does what he needs to do. I'm sure everyone's really going to look forward to his ground announcing performance tomorrow. But it's much of the same.
Anyone
can really be excited
names.
about. Anyone can read names of a
names
pamphlet,
off a sheet.
You know?
I mean, Michael doesn't really do anything, so yeah.
I personally only go to Wanderers games to hear Michael Turner talk.
Stuff the on pitch.
There's a football game going on.
But is Turner really the worth the ticket alone? Like, I think there's a lot of.
Oh yeah, he's the marquee ground announcer.
Yeah, give him a marquee contract. Harv Pestinger, host of TGG Football, asked, "What are all our kits?" I got the Australia World Cup kit from 2010. Dave, I'm not sure what you have.
Germany. I think it's from 2-3 years ago, not the current one.
2014. I think that's a World Cup winning squad, isn't it?
No, Germany.
Is it?
I think it's like from 18-19, that sort of time.
Yeah,
can't really remember. Yeah, Germany, my second team for the World Cup. So, sorry, that's why.
Sure.
I'm wearing Yaron Souza's National Youth League Melbourne City jersey.
And Jack?
I've got a Man United polo shirt because I'm creative.
Very nice. Love the polos. Heading into the Wellington Phoenix taking on Adelaide United. The return to Sky Stadium for the Knucks. Very keen to see how they will perform at home. This is, of course, a very intriguing sort of. I'd say it's a very intriguing looking side the Wellington Phoenix have on paper. Of course, they brought in a lot of talent from overseas as well. So Finn Sermon, Scott Wooten, Steven Ugarkovic, Tim Payne, Costa Barbarouses, Ben Old, Oscar Zawada, Bojida Krajev, Lucas Moragas, Nicholas Pennington, Cullen Elliott, Ben Wayne, Sam Sutton, Ollie Sale, Josh Laws, Clayton Lewis, Oscar Van Huttem, Jan Sase, and Alex Paulson. Unavailable is David Ball, and Alex Rufer. 2 big outs, I must say. For Adelaide United, is James Delianov, Harry van der Sarg, Ben Warland, Louis Dorigo, Ryan Kitto, Isaias, Zach Clough, Craig Goodwin, Lachlan Barr, George Blackwood, Javi Lopez, Ben Halloran, Iwande, Luka Jovanovic, Panache Madana, Alexander Popovich, Joe Gauchi, Asad Kasimovic, Musa Torre, and Ethan Alagic. Unavailable is Nick Ansel, Hiroshi Ibasuki, Josh Cavallo, Bernardo Oliveira, and Johnny Yule. So Adelaide bringing in the youth, and with a third Torre brother potentially making his debut for Adelaide United's first team. Jack, this is, I'd say, probably the least hype fixture of the round, so I'm sorry to allocate this to you. But it could be one of the most interesting with Wellington Phoenix returning home to Wellington.
Yeah, I hope that it's that same kind of exciting vibe that it has been the last few times they've played at Wellington, because if they can keep up even like 50, 75, well, that's a big difference. But like, 50% of that energy, or even, maybe a bit more, but like a lot of that energy, like it's not just like the crowd, it's that positive energy that like makes me really want to watch the Wellington games, particularly when they're mid-afternoon on Sunday. I think this one's at 1 p.m. or something like that. It can, people might be doing other things, but like, so hopefully we can, Wellington can create this, I guess, vibe over the course of the season where people really want to tune to their games because of the atmosphere it offers. But I think on the pitch, off the pitch, David Ball is a big loss for them, obviously, because of his versatility to be able to play as a striker and attacking midfielder if they stick with their 4-2-2-2. So like he can play in both positions, and he just offers a lot. Like he's a very active player. And also, but I think that a really interesting point, I'm not too sure about some of their signings, so forgive me, but I won't talk too much about them until I've seen them play, and I can actually say like if I like what I think about them, if that makes sense. But I think that if they stick with like 2 in midfield, a midfield 2 of Clayton Lewis and Stegan Ugarkovic is really interesting, because I think it could work really well, because that Lewis is got this really good technique, but doesn't really like to carry the ball, like move the ball forwards through dribbling. He's more of a passer, and he can dictate tempo. He sometimes splits like in between the centre backs, but he can also play these long raking, nice passes. Whereas Ugarkovic is another kind of tempo setter, but he does it more in his short passing and his dribbling. So I think that the combination between the two, where one offers passing, one offers dribbling, if that makes sense, it sounds a bit simple, but that could be really, really interesting. And like I can already kind of picture like Lewis dropping off a little bit deeper and being able to find Ugarkovic in a bit of a pocket of space, and Ugarkovic can drive forwards, and then you've got 4 attackers really, plus Ugarkovic. You can like Wellington, if they go back to their exciting football they were playing in the first half of last season, where it was really like nice flowing possession based when they had the ball. They didn't have the ball often. When they did, they played nice flowing possession, like nice flowing football through like the lines. I think those two as a midfield duo could be really good for them.
I'd have to agree on all fronts there, really. I guess anybody have any other thoughts on this fixture? No, it seems to be everyone's sort of game that they're happy to miss this week. So that's the vibe that I get. More predictions. Jack, who do you think's going to take the 3 points back to either Adelaide or in Wellington? That makes no sense.
Draw. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Sure.
I think Adelaide United, I'm keen personally to see Asad Kasimovic hopefully get a run. He played, I think, 1 game last season, and he's looked real good all preseason. And I just found out that he's picked number 47 because his initials are AK, so he's AK-47. So how can you not want him to do well?
That is the most Asad Kasimovic thing I could ever think of. David, your thoughts?
I'll go with Adelaide in this one. I think too much quality on the Adelaide side.
Fair play. And that just does it for round 1. I don't know why Harper's talking about the socio-political state of the Democratic People's Republic of Congo, but so be it. Moving on to our wild prediction of the season, boys. I don't know. I'm just gonna go around the panel and sort of go through what everyone's wild prediction for the season is. On field, off field, doesn't matter. Whoever wants to go first, go ahead.
I think I'll go with Melbourne victory versus Sydney FC Grand Final. I think it's wild because I think Melbourne will be right up there, but not many people are expecting Sydney to go that far. So I'll go Melbourne Sydney Grand Final at Etihad, where Sydney will win.
Etihad. I don't know what Etihad is.
Marvel Stadium. Sorry, I'm more of a DC fan, to be honest. So
fair play. Shah, what's your wild prediction for the campaign?
Well, I already kind of alluded to it in my preview of the Perth Glory game, but my wild prediction is Perth Glory are going to surprise a lot of people, possibly make the six or at least get close. So instead of that, I'll say I think the spots between 3rd and 12th, they're going to be really close, maybe 10 points between them. I think every side is going to be in with a chance to make the finals with 2 rounds left to go.
Brisbane and Perth included, Shah. Oh,
yep.
Even those two.
There you go. Jack, what do you think?
I haven't. I've got a couple. One is that I think that by halfway through the season, one of the Sydney coaches will be sacked, and I don't know why, but just geographical reasons, I guess. And the other one I think is that a lot of people seem to have the Victorian teams as a cemented top 3, or at least Melbourne City and Melbourne Victory as a cemented top 2, and I think that, there's a chance that all 3 or 2 of those teams will finish as top 2, top 3. Actually, you know what? I don't think that the Victorian teams will finish as the top 3, if that makes sense.
That's not that outlandish, but come on. That's not outlandish. That's
what? No, everyone seems
more outlandish. More outlandish.
I've already done my outlandish one. This is my
reasonable take. I think it's reasonable to say that all Victorian sides won't finish in the top 3.
No, all right. Well, it's not cemented. I think any team can do whatever they want. That's my outlandish prediction.
I think that's pretty reasonable. Don't you think, guys? Anyway, what's my one? I don't know. Here's my outlandish prediction. The A-League will average over 9,000 attendance for the entire season.
Okay.
Jeez.
Whoa.
I would love that, but I can't.
If you look at last year's number, that is pretty outlandish, to be honest.
I think it will average over.
Glory's got a capacity of 4,000 for most of their.
Oh, that's true. Actually, I didn't think about that. That's going to bring it down a lot. 4,500, I think, is what Macedonia Park. So, yeah, I don't know. Why not? Why not take a stab in the dark? Look, this is how I see it. If Wanderers win, if Victory win, if Sydney win, good crowds, the bound to come in pretty much. So
you got the Allianz Stadium bump. So.
Yeah, the 30K crowd on Saturday is going to boost the metrics a little bit. So hey, see what happens. Final topic of discussion: the Matildas. I just put Matildas just in caps. Why not? They are playing 2 fixtures in this coming week, both in Europe. Very under the radar, the squad announcement. It's a bit disappointing due to the other factors that obviously took into a sort of overshadowed this squad announcement, which we're not going to get into. But of course, we'll go through the squad briefly. Of course, they're playing South Africa and Denmark. I will be supporting South Africa on the Saturday. I'll be supporting Matildas. Although I really want to support South Africa, to be honest. But hey, it is what it is. So that squad, of course, European contingent, all points to. Let me just get it up from the media distribution. Give me 1 second before I just keep stalling this for as long as I can. 1 second. Guys, this is really bad. I should be more prepared. But just give me 1 second. I know Sam Kerr's in there. She has to be.
Only if she wasn't.
She is. 1 second, guys. This is really bad.
We need some
Can I talk, Neil? Do you want me to talk?
No, I'll be all right. Kai Simon is out, though. I know Kai Simon is definitely out with an ACL injury, which is a very, very big loss. And also, Remy Seams and Emma Check and Matilda McNamara have been added to the squad. But the squad, as it currently stands, is Mackenzie Arnold, Steph Catley, Alex Chidia, Kara Cooney-Cross, Larissa Crummer, Caitlin Ford, Mary Fowler, Emily Gilder, Katrina Gorry, Charlotte Grant, Sam Kerr, Corey Lagazzo, Ivy Lewick, Tegan Micah, Courtney Nevin, Claire Porkinghorn, Hayley Razzo, Emily Van Egmond, Courtney Vine, Claire Wheeler, Lydia Williams, Tamika Yallop, and Yallop's out, and so is Claire Wheeler. So this will see, of course, the aforementioned 3 coming in to replace 4. And Emily Van Egmond also out with a quad strain. So, yeah, not a full strength Matildas, and also, of course, Kai Simon being out for that foreseeable future is not going to really help our chances in these fixtures. Jack and Shah, I guess you are very skilled in that Matildas domain. How do you see these games going? South Africa should be a relatively easy one, but what about Denmark?
You can go if you want, Shah. Or do you want me to?
Look, I think if we don't, with all respect to South Africa, if we don't show that we're a world-class side that should realistically be pushing at least a semi-final in a World Cup against South Africa, I think, not to be harsh, I think Tony Gustafsson will lose the last bit of goodwill he has. Because I think over the past sort of year, even the most diehard defenders of Tony have started to, the tide started to shift a little bit with his performances, his lack of reinvigoration of the squad. And there was even talks recently of Michelle Heyman, who I think is 37 or 38, being a potential option for the World Cup for the Matilda squad. And no disrespect to her, fantastic goal scorer, but when us as a national team are potentially looking towards these players like Ivy Louis,
She's
Michelle
34, by
Heyman.
the way, Shah. You're selling her a bit short, mate.
Apologies. But when we're starting to look towards these players because we haven't, started to play a lot of these younger players who perhaps deserve 2 or 3 caps, or to start getting, integrated into the squad, it really goes to show what Tony Gustafsson's done and how short term he's really thought. So I think if we don't start to show that we've been playing a pretty much full strength squad and justify why he hasn't really, reinvigorated the squad, I think a lot of people are going to start to turn on him. Apologies, that was my cat, by the way, if anyone heard that.
Yeah, you're a cat guy. I see that. Very nice. Jack, your thoughts on these 2 fixtures?
Yeah, it should be interesting. I think the loss of Kai Simon, like I was saying, is like a massive, deal. I think because of obviously an ACL injury, so it's not just these fixtures she's out of. She could be missing the World Cup, and I think if she does miss the World Cup, that really sucks for the Matildas, to be honest, because that she has a really good relationship with Ellie Carpenter. Because when Carpenter plays with Rasso on the wing, they're both trying to look to do to an extent the same thing. And so one of them has to come inside. It's always a little bit awkward. Whereas Kai Simon, she's more, I guess she's less like energetic. She's more controlled in her movements to Rasso. So she complements Carpenter role, like she complements her really well in like the way the 2 act. So I think that her loss is big. And I think it's really frustrating that Gustafsson doesn't have the chance to play a full strength Matilda's side in a fixture, just for like even 45 minutes, because he didn't get to this is not defending, by the way, this is just like a general point. He didn't get to last time. And so it would be really nice if before the World Cup, we can assemble our full strength squad just for a game, and so they get familiar with each other in the structure they want to play in, rotations, whatever like that. So it's disappointing again. Obviously it's not the player's fault, but there's quite a few first team starters, or at least people who could push the first team out for these couple of games.
Yeah, very interesting thoughts. I think that the Matildas discussion has been very prevalent. Not as prevalent recently, should I say, due to obviously Socceroos matters and things of that ilk. But I'm sure that the talk is going to be even more intense in relation to the Socceroos discussion as we approach the Women's World Cup. Of course, I think the tickets came out today for the visa pre-sale. I'm not saying everyone should, sign up to Visa, but it seems as if it's actually quite good ticketing deals, to be honest, which is really great. So,
Advert.
Sorry?
Are you doing an advert, Neil?
No. Sorry. But yeah, if you want to go to that, feel free, be my guest. I think it's a really good deal for all these games. And for a World Cup, guys, like $20 to a game I think it's $20 per game, I think, for some of the Melbourne ones. it's good pricing, to be honest. I've got no qualms to see the Matildas in action at a World Cup is a priceless thing, really. Sha?
One final point on these two games, before we move on, is there's two players I really want to single out who I think, if they have good performances, they could sneak their way into possibly the World Cup squad. And that's Emma Checker, who come in as an injury replacement. She's sort of in the W League, A League Women's, has showed what a quality player she is, but she hasn't really been given the chance before at national team level. She's had little bits, but like not too much. And Larissa Crummer, who was involved in the national team more so like oh, 7 or 8 years ago, and then kind of dropped off for a few seasons, and then played some NPL, played for Brisbane Roar, did really well, and has only just started to come back into the national team equations. And with Kaya Simon now out with an ACL, obviously she's not going to beat Sam Kerr to that spot, but I think if she has a good performance and can link up with the teammates really well, she could book her, ticket not on the plane because we're playing at home, but on the bus to the World Cup.
I mean, there are planes. You have to fly in and out of Sydney and everything like that. But anyway, that just about does it for this week's edition of the KickCast. Just over an hour. I think that was a very successful podcast. Of course, you can catch everything on kick360.com.au. Fantasy previews, interviews with players and things, and lots of plugs, I'm sure. You'll see it all on our socials in the coming weeks. Thank you so much for the support, guys. Any final words, Jack, David, or Sha?
Just great to be back, I think. Really keen for the season, and hopefully Melbourne Victory and Wanderers have a poor season.
No, okay.
Nice.
The bias is very apparent.
I just want to say it's great to be back on the KickCast, and it's great to be hosted by the wonderful Neil Simons, the second most popular host of Pitch to Park podcast. And thanks for having me, boys. Looking forward to the season.
Appreciate it, mate. And
I thought
Jack?
the second most popular host of Pitch to Park was Simon Hill. Thought it went George Mel, Simon Hill, then Neil Simons.
Oh my god! Hey.
Oh
god.
yes.
That was interesting today. Nah, Simon's great. Jack?
Yeah, thanks for having me. It should be a good first round.
Game for the first round of the Isuzu Youth A-League Men. Give me a free Isuzu if you want. Isuzu, but it's up to you. Catch all our key takeaways over the weekend on kick360.com.au. I've been Neil Simons. They've been David Shilovsky, Sha Nen, and Jack George. We'll see you guys very soon for another KickCast, TGG Football, Pitch to Park. We got all the podcasts right here on Kick.